I saw, I've been following you on Instagram for a bit here. I saw you guys were just down in Costa Rica with looked like a group of lads that had similar views as you, which we'll dive into. But how was that?
That was an amazing trip. First time in Costa Rica, very special place. The lifestyle there is just so healthy. And yeah, just being around a bunch of guys there that all share the same interests with, yeah, connecting with Mother Nature and just being down to earth. It was an awesome trip. Amazing.
It looked really fun. I followed, I'm sure you're familiar with Paul Saladino. He's down in Costa Rica too. What is it about Costa Rica?
Actually, I don't know if you saw, but we met up with Paul.
Did you?
We did, yeah. We got to hang out at his crib a little bit. Um, and that's just it. Like, there's a reason he lives there full time. There's something about it that makes you want to be healthier. Um, you're just so much more connected to the earth. We spent every morning at the beach.
Yeah.
Every day we're doing something, in the jungle, around the trees, just out in nature. And even like the stores and everything, it's just like an open concept. So like there's not a lot of doors like or windows. It's just like everything's open. Like your house runs right into the outside and like everything runs together. It's just a great way to, I've never grounded so much in my life. You hear so much about grounding, like get your feet on the earth surface. And I try to, but it's hard to be intentional about it in the States. But there, it's like, it's hard not to. You don't have to wear a shirt or shoes anywhere you go. So
That's amazing. I've followed Paul for a while now. His home, it like he's got, like you said, no doors, that indoor outdoor setup. He looks like he's got like that indoor outdoor gym area. Was it pretty sweet?
it was an awesome, awesome setup. Yeah, we hung out at his crib for like one afternoon, just kind of did some stuff on, like, he's got a pull-up bar and all sorts of little home gym stuff down there. And then got like a pool it's like, we were joking that it's Mountain Valley spring water because it's spring water. It's not, obviously not chlorine,
Yeah.
and it's not like salt water, like a lot of pools that you'd see would be a better option to have a saltwater pool.
Mhm.
But his is actually just like fresh spring water. But yeah, his whole house is it's like a safe haven. He has Wi-Fi, but the only way to connect is like with a cord.
Oh, you have to be wired in.
Yeah, you have to be wired. It's
That guy's wild. I know, and I don't know if you guys talked about this at all, but he used to be hardcore, carnivore, and then he switched more to an animal based, I guess is what he would call it,
yeah.
where he adds in, fruits, honeys, stuff of that nature. Did he talk to you at all about that?
Well, we all talked talked a decent amount about diet. Obviously, that's kind of
Yeah.
the common denominator that brought us all there. Um, but yeah, I mean, I remember back in like 2022, that's when I really started posting my own journey. And now that's when I was really paying attention to Paul. And I remember it was about that time when he switched from just carnivore to like slowly introducing other foods like fruits and honey and raw dairy into his diet. And he talked about that a fair amount, but he also talked about how I like the big theme that I took away from our conversations was he's never done learning about himself and about what foods work best for him. And that might look a little different than what works best for Chase. And like, um, yeah, he said that he's always experimenting with different stuff. And yeah, literally just like using himself as a science experiment to find what's the best diet for him. So
Yeah, that's good for him. That's awesome. And I think that's how it should be. Whenever anybody comes in, I'm a little bit hesitant and leery of people who come in and say, hey, you have to eat this way, whether that be carnivore, whether that be vegan, whether that be whatever that is, because we all are so different. Unfortunately, people do have reactions to certain things at different levels. So people are a little bit different. And so when everybody comes in and says, no, you need to eat this way, it's the only way to do it, I'm a little bit hesitant to believe that. Or if they say like, hey, this is the way it is, just do it this way, without expanding their knowledge or continuing to research, I'm just like, well, that's kind of a red flag for me there.
I 100% agree. And I've noticed, like I've switched up my content. I used to like talk a little bit more like this is the only way to eat, but now it's just, hey, this works for me. It might work for you. Like, give it a try. It's worth trying if you're searching, if you're not feeling at your best and you think maybe there's something in my diet that could be the root cause of that. Give this a try. Try different things, because you're right. There's not one size fits all for diet.
For sure. Well, talk to me a little bit about what you were doing before you started. What would you self-style yourself? Kind of animal-based eating or whole foods? What would you style?
So honestly, when I first started, I was like pretty close to standard American. I mean,
Yeah.
I was playing college football at the end, or so I graduated and was eating college football and college kid
Yep.
food, cafeteria, going out to eat, whatever. And then from there, after I graduated, I went to Hawaii for 6 months just to, I don't know, find myself, I guess. I wanted to do something. I knew I wanted to do something different. And then 6 months there, about a month and a half in, is when I'd been seeing a ton of Paul's stuff. And I was like, all right, I'm giving this a try. So I pretty much went from standard American diet, Cane's. I remember we went to like a Five Guys there. And then all at once, I was like, no, I'm done with that. I'm giving this a try. And from the very first day that I like fully committed, I started sharing it on social media. I was going to use it as like an accountability partner. And luckily, like 3 posts in, one of them got like 100,000 views, which was pretty cool, because it for sure kept me on pace. I was like, oh, okay, now I got to keep going. People are taking a like to this. Like, let's just run this experiment and see how it goes.
Did you notice when you shifted, because, that cold turkey shift, did you notice like a difference in how you felt or mentally how you felt?
Yeah. So funny enough, I was still lifting at the time, because lifting's always been a part of my life, just with football,
Sure.
playing sports in high school and college. So that was something that I kept doing even in Hawaii. But one of the friends that I met there, Cody, he was a big runner, and I had like no desire to run. I remember him asking me, and I was like, dude, sorry, not for me. Last thing I want to do. But when I started this diet, I literally felt like, dude, I have enough energy right now. Like, I'm just going to go for a run with Cody. Let's try it out. Let's see how it goes. And at that same time, so this was like December, January of 22, beginning of 23. And Nick Bear was like just starting this whole hybrid athlete thing.
Yeah.
And that's why I was kind of keen to, all right, I'll give this running a try. Like, it might be cool, might be fun. And just fell in love with it. But the energy that I was getting from the diet, I was like, dude, I got to be doing something with this. Like, it feels wrong to have this much energy and just be lifting. So big time energy was at its highest, and it has been since.
That's great to hear. So you went straight into the like animal-based fruits, fruits, honey. Do you eat vegetables?
Yeah, so I'm not afraid of vegetables. I'll eat
Yeah.
carrots like every day.
Nice.
And sometimes one of my roommates will cook up like some Brussels sprouts or sweet potato. I'm not afraid of it all, or regular potato. But I definitely am not one that just like throws broccoli in a bowl and starts to eat it. If there's a little bit of broccoli mixed in my food, sure. But it's never the focal point of a meal.
For sure. I'm kind of the same way, and I want to get back to the running here in a second. But like one of my go-to meals is like I'll get up, I'll run, I'll work out in the morning, and then I'll come back to the house, and I'll cook up a pound of ground beef with like salt, Redmond's real salt. Throw that in there, and then I'll throw. It's really I live in Denver, Colorado. It's very difficult to get raw dairy out here. Very difficult. So I just get like low vat pasteurized yogurt, like whole fat yogurt, and I'll throw that in there with the ground beef, and I'll just like mix it up with a little bit of I can't remember the name. It's like Good Bird or Yellow Bird, I think it is.
Yellow
Some
bird.
kind of hot sauce. I'll throw that in there, and I'll just mix that up, and I eat it like cereal, and I eat that every morning. Is my go-to.
Yeah, dude, that's the thing. I'll never get sick of it. Like I got those core meals. Everyone's got those core meals, and you can just eat them every day. They make you feel amazing, and I never get sick of them. I am the kind of person who can eat the same thing over and over again.
For sure.
But yeah, dude, that sounds really good. You're making me hungry.
Yeah, being here in traveling for work for 3 weeks, it's brutal. Like I have to eat what I can eat here. I have to do what I can do. So like you mentioned Five Guys, I'm like, well, Five Guys is better than at least because at least I'm getting a decent amount of beef there. So I had that the other day. But you do what you can do here. I see that you eat a significant amount of eggs, but like, at least compared to me, like you seem to eat a lot of eggs. Do you? How many meals do you eat a day? Are you trying to get like a certain amount of grams of protein, or what, are you just eating because you're hungry?
Yeah. So recently, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the creator Sills.
Mm-mm.
He basically has kind of like stormed the space I'm in recently. Okay. He's big on micronutrients. So he talks about getting all of our B vitamins, minerals, all vitamins and minerals, the whole spectrum, everything. Sure. And just likes to talk about nutrient dense foods that are surprisingly not very nutrient dense, like apples and bananas, great sources of carbs, but not a ton of vitamins that you're getting in those, which I thought was super interesting because that's something I've always known about, micronutrients, but, to really hear him talk about it, like made me change the way I eat a little bit. So what I've done recently is I had watched one of his videos and reached out to him, and he made like a quote, simplest day of eating possible to like hit all of your micronutrients, which was salmon, eggs, red meat, kiwis, blackberries, and some like raw Parmigiano Reggiano. And that was it. And I added carrots to that because I love carrots. But that's what I've been doing for probably like 3 months now. It's been something along the lines of that. When I was in Costa Rica, it was very different. But that's what I've like kind of resorted to. And it's been working amazing. I've been feeling great. It is fairly restrictive, but I recently moved here to Charleston with 2 roommates who eat very similarly. I have little to no temptation to like eat crap ever because these guys are always eating somewhat similar to me, some variation, but they're very dialed in with their diet as well. So I've just been playing with the experiment, seeing how I've felt. But outside of just those core 6 or 7 things, I used to eat and still would eat a lot of, Greek yogurt, skyr, maple syrup. I do put like honey on some of my stuff right now, but yeah. And then the eggs just came from like, when I started my weight loss journey after I was done playing football, I started with eggs before I knew that they were like such a great health food.
For sure.
And that's just a food that I've always loved, and I never limit myself with them. So I try to eat around a dozen a day, some days I feel like only eating 8. Some days I get, more than 12. Like I think yesterday I had 14. Uh, but I have always told myself like this food, there's no way you're going to gain bad weight eating this food. Like this will only turn you into a stronger, better version of yourself. Like it's a complete protein, like perfectly balanced, and just anabolic, bro. Like
Yeah.
I hate the egg shortage, but before that they were so expensive, or they were so affordable too.
Yeah.
Like you could get a dozen eggs from Aldi for, I remember, like 90 cents at one point last year. So they just became a staple because I would buy like 10 dozen for $10, and I could just crack them and down them in all sorts of different ways too. So
Do you prioritize at all, especially prioritizing micronutrients over macronutrients? Are you prioritizing like the quality of your food? So like you getting like pasture raised eggs versus just or grass fed beef? What are we talking here?
yeah, that's a great question. So I like to look at everything rationally. So 90% of the time I'm going to go with pasture raised egg and grass fed meat or wild caught salmon. But there's 10% of the time where either they're out of it. I'm not going to be afraid to go with, more of the farm raised kind of route. I think eggs are good for you, whether they're coming from the healthiest chicken in the world or an average chicken. I think they're always going to be better than not having them. But I like to keep it pretty clean majority of the time, grass fed, wild caught, pasture raised, organic if I can. But I always, whenever people ask me stuff too, like, hey, I can't afford grass fed massaged beef, like all of the fancy stuff, I'm like, dude, that's okay. Like if it's corn fed or soy fed, like if that's the best that you can do for yourself, that's still so much better than eating, Taco Bell. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Especially with beef, because I think a lot of people think like, oh, they're grain fed their whole life. They're on grass 90% of their life, and then they're just fattened up that last little 10%.
yeah,
And the difference between like the two in a micronutrient profile is not that significant. Like nobody's eating beef for their omega-3s. Like it doesn't matter if it's grass fed or not, you're not going to be getting that either way. So I think you're exactly right. Like particularly when it comes to beef, whatever's around, whatever's you can afford is better than not.
yep, I 100% agree.
So with getting into running in Hawaii, are you still doing that? Because I'm recently getting into running. My wife is a runner. She loves to run. She's training for Boston. She qualified. I have, like you, past football player, got into like Olympic weightlifting and CrossFit, competed in that, had to run for that for a bit, but I didn't enjoy it. But now I'm getting more into like long distance. I'm training for David Goggins 4x4x48. Gonna do that here in a bit. So I'm just trying to accumulate volume. And the more that I run, the more I'm like, oh, okay, I can start to enjoy this, where historically I've always hated long distance running. I've been a power athlete. So how has your journey in that evolved? Any tips?
Yeah, I would say I was lucky right from the get-go. My friend Cody, he'd been a lifelong runner, and he kind of just coached me. We were roommates. We lived together there. We got up and ran together every day. Whenever I had something flare up, like a shin splint or something, he helped. So having a coach is huge, but not at all necessary. Like last year, I ran the half marathon in June, and then the training for that just kind of rolled right into marathon training in October. And I did great. I went sub hour and a half on the half marathon, and then almost sub 3 on full marathon. I think I ran a 3:05.
It's awesome.
Which, yeah, was huge for me. I was like,
Yeah.
that was my first ever marathon. Like, I think I think if I could do that, anyone could do that, with the right amount of training, and no coach,
Yeah.
just me coaching myself. But yeah, I would say biggest tips is just consistency. Like that's the same thing that I tell, the clients that do coaching with me and everyone that, comments on or reaches out to me via DM. I'm like, dude, it's all consistency. Like you can follow the worst plan ever, but if you follow it consistently, you'll get results. If you're following the best plan ever, but you're following it inconsistently, you're not going to get good results. So it's like the same thing with diet, one cheat meal's not going to break you, just like missing one run's not going to break you. But eating healthy every once in a while isn't going to make you fit the same way running every once in a while isn't going to make you a good runner. So it's just like what we do majority of the time is what's going to, help us win in the long run. But yeah, I'm not like super knowledgeable on running. I just am good at putting my shoes on and going and doing it. So that's what's helped me the most. And yeah, currently I'm running about, 20 to 30 miles per week. I've got a few buddies here in Charleston that are big into running. So our plans honestly, we'd love to just like find a half marathon to do like every month or so, or a 10K or something like that. Just a fun race to go out there and compete a little bit. And then it's always, a fun excuse for everybody to get together and go out to eat and do that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, that would be a blast. My wife's trying to get me to sign up for a marathon to officially put it on the books, which I probably will here. But I'm like you. I'm like, I want my first one to be good. I don't want to go in and do like a 4.5 hour. I want to be like around the 3 hour mark. So, and but I know that as soon as I put it on the books, like I will actually get a lot more serious about the training. So it's just like, do I want to cross that line yet? Do I want to do interval training and do that versus right now? I'm just, I'm running every day, but it's like nice zone 2. So I'm trying to get into that a little bit more.
I mean, that is a hack right there. If you can force yourself to sign up for a race, with plenty of time, like, 5 months in advance or something, that'll definitely make sure that you're doing the training that you need to be doing, because you're in the back of your mind, you're like, crap, that race is coming up. It's getting closer and closer. So,
yeah. For me, I, like you, came from a football background, doing sports my whole life. For me, recently, the past couple years, like the past 2, like I stopped. No more sports, and it was like crazy. Like you said, like you went to Hawaii to find yourself. Like you had to like find yourself outside of fitness. Like what does that look like for you? And I stopped going to the gym, stopped doing all these things because like that's something I've been doing 4 or 5 hours a day since I was like, high school. And so just finding yourself outside of that activity and then being able to reintroduce those activities back in, not as a part of, at least for me, not as a part of my identity, but just something that I enjoy, has been pivotal, huge, because I've lost that interest in the activity. I just did it because I always did it, but I didn't enjoy it as much. Now I'm doing it because of fun, makes me feel good. I like the dopamine hit that I get as soon as I'm done. And so that's been huge recently. So I'm hesitant to re-add a competitive aspect back into it because I know how competitive I can be, if that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. I'd say, like we can both relate to the fact that football is such a huge part of your life when you're playing it and you've played it your whole life. And then when it ends, it's like, I definitely had that identity crisis. I was like, what do I do with my hands? Like, I don't know what to do right now. Like, this was my sport. This was my baby. And afterwards, personally, I handled it the worst way ever. I like turned to like partying. And I think what I was really like more deeply searching for was just like that community, that same community and having like something that everyone can mutually love and come together with. But when you're done with sports and you live in the Midwest, that's usually the bar.
Yep.
That's kind of what it boils down to. So I went that route for a while, um, and I just found it very unfulfilling. And um, that's kind of what pushed me to move to Hawaii. I just felt myself in a bad rut. I was in some circles that weren't bad. It was never like I'm gonna hurt myself or I was gonna get in serious trouble. It was just I feel like I have more in store for me. God's got more in store for me. I need to go find out what that is. I need to separate myself from some of these crowds, some of these people for my own good. And so that's what I did. And when I was there, I found out just leaving, you're relocating does not fix all your problems. They still follow you. They're right there with you. So that's when I really just started to do some internal work. I was by myself. Obviously, I was with some people there, but no one that I really knew, no one that I could vent to and like talk to on a super deep level, or no one that knew who I was prior to 2 weeks ago. So it gave me an opportunity to be isolated and to talk to myself, to do that internal work that really needed to be done. And from there is where I just kind of let things come my way. I asked God to show me, put on my plate what's meant for me. And from there it was just attacking all the opportunities that came my way. Some things that I never thought would happen, like being in Costa Rica with Paul Saladino would be one of them for sure. But everything between that December of 2022 to now has just been a roller coaster. And yeah, I still sometimes struggle with what exactly is my identity, but I think that what's important is that at my core, I know who I am, but um, I'm always willing to, attack whatever opportunity comes my way. I guess that's the thing. As soon as I start to think I've got it all figured out, that's when I get shown that I do not in the slightest.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. With what you're doing right now, particularly on social media, I mean, like you said, like you created this video, it blew up, and then you've kind of been trending along that and following that path. Like, what would you say your goal is like right now? Are you wanting to post? Are you wanting to help people? Like, what are we talking here?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something I've given a fair thought of about. When I started posting, I had zero intention of gaining really any followers. I thought it'd be great. Like in my head, I'm sure I thought, yeah, that'd be cool if I gained followers. But my
Mm-hmm.
goal was to never get to 30,000 followers or now almost 100,000 followers. And then bring it across several different platforms and just grow and grow. Like I, part of me is a little like still not sure. I'm like, do I want to have 1 million followers? I don't know if I do.
Yeah.
Um, I do think that the feeling I get when someone DMs me and says, "Hey Reece, I just want you to know you're posting and sharing your journey and what you've been eating has helped me so tremendously. I can't thank you enough. I just ran my first 5K, yada yada." Those messages sounds cheesy, but literally do make it worth it because it's like, okay, every post that you've done does not count for nothing. And if I reach 1 million followers someday, I think that that's cool. But if I'm done here at my 130,000, 140,000, that's great. You know, that's still 140,000 people that I'm going to continue to nurture. And honestly, that almost seems like too much. Like, can people start unfollowing me a little bit? I need a smaller community. I just want to be able to talk to
Right.
everybody. No, but yeah, I think growth is always a good um, indicator, or it's a good unit of measurement, you know, but it's not always the most accurate. Like when you're losing weight, the scale is not always exactly the best factor to look at. Sometimes just looking in the mirror is the best thing to tell, okay, am I on the right track? Am I doing the right thing? Because, yeah, the numbers can lie sometimes. It's more important to be input focused rather than output focused and control the controllables. But that's a byproduct of what this whole journey's taught me too, is you can't control how a video performs or how user 313 likes it or how he's going to comment on it, you know, and taking away or setting my ego to the side a little bit and understanding, okay, there's things that are bigger than you. In fact, most things are out of your control. So you got to be at peace with what you can control. So,
Absolutely. I think that's huge. And I completely agree. Like when you, at least for me, and particularly growing up in an age where we had social media at such a young age, you see that and you're like, okay, I got to accumulate this number. This number means value. This number means, worth to some degree, particularly like in high school or middle school when you have that. And then as you get older and as you find out what's more important to you, you realize like the number A doesn't matter. And B, do I actually want that number to go up? Like, do I actually want to take the time? Do I actually want to have this number go up, be recognized, or even just have that many people follow me on my day-to-day life? And it's that double-edged sword where it's like, I like creating, I like posting, I like providing this value, but I also wish I didn't have to, have that many people there. So I totally get that. Well, outside of food, doing eggs, meat, the animal-based diet, I know you were out there with, Paul Saladino. Uh, what's that guy's name? Joey
Joey
sorts on it.
Sword.
He's sort, yeah, he's a stat. I follow him too. But they're super, past food. You're counting, like you said, Wi-Fi, water, air. Like, are those other things that you put a lot of weight in that you try to control?
So I've got two roommates in the space as well. They're both very, as Joey would say, sorted with
Yeah.
that sort of side of it. But I'm learning from them, but I'm still dipping my toe in it a little bit. I still wear some polyester because I'm not wearing cotton when I'm running a marathon. That's just not what I'm going to
Miserable.
do. So if someone out there is watching and wants, or Joey, I guess, because he just dropped his a clothing line with like all organic cotton. I'm like,
Mhm.
man, start making some like comfortable running and lifting gear, and I will wear the crap out of that. But I do really lack with a lot of that. I use my microwave sometimes. I do not all the things that you shouldn't do, but I do a fair amount of them, enough where my roommates will give me a hard time sometimes, which
Okay.
is, I think you've got to pick your own battles, because even for those guys who take it very seriously, there's some things where they're like, you know what? That's out of my control, man. I'm not gonna Google search what company makes this mug and see if the factory is seed oil free, or if they're using real
Yeah.
organic ceramic that's not leaching into my glass every time I pour hot coffee in it. Where does it end? At that point, you got to go live in the woods by yourself and make your own products, because that's the only way to know that you truly know what's inside of it. But I do think that there's a fine line to find where you can still be intentional about removing the non-toxic things from your life. With the everyday stuff like soaps and toothpaste, things that we're rubbing directly onto our body, the environment that we're living in and sleeping in, air purifiers, certain kinds of candles that are giving, toxic flame and chemicals into the air. Those kinds of things that you can really fix and know, I think are absolutely important. And people should be intentional about those. And there's no excuse not to be. And I am personally. But there's a few things where I'm like, all right, I also understand that, sometimes we're humans and we're tough, and I'm gonna be okay if I wear some polyester for this 10-mile run. I think it's gonna hurt me more if I chafe for 10 miles than if I'm wearing these for a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think you made a good point there in terms of it's very easy if you let yourself to get caught up into so many different things and then just drive yourself crazy. Like, oh, all the dishes, the clothes that I wear, the sheets that I use, the mattress that I sleep on, like everything, Wi-Fi. And you just can go down that rabbit hole, which if you can and you have that ability, all the power to you. But if you're just an average, American who just wants to be a little bit healthier, I think it's always important to remember like 20% yields 80% of the results. So just like focus on that 20%. What would you say that 20% is? So for somebody who is just like, okay, I want to be a little bit healthier, where would you say they start? What would be the biggest bang for buck?
Yeah, I'd say totally depends on what their goal is. I've got people who DM me saying, with all sorts of different backgrounds, like, hey, I'm 100 pounds overweight. Where do I start? Or, hey, I'm extremely frail. I don't know where to start. Or, hey, I've got this chronic illness. I don't know where to start. But like you said, that 20% that yields 80% is usually about, the same things. And like a top three would have to be nutrition right off the bat. If you're putting the right foods in your body, or if you're not putting the right foods in your body, you're going to be a completely different person compared to if you were. And you can't fake that. You can't Google search, how does it feel to eat the right food? You've got to do it yourself and feel it and experience it, because that's where the magic is, like actually experiencing it firsthand. So I'd say nutrition has to be number one. And like we were saying before, it doesn't have to be grass-fed, organic, everything. Just whole foods focused. Make sure that the foods you're eating has one ingredient in it, maybe two. And yeah, then you're going to be, that I would say that's 50% of it. Another big chunk would be sleep and lifestyle. Those two right there. So I don't even think you have to be in the gym 4 days a week. If you're in the gym 2 or 3 days a week, or doing something to get your heart rate up consistently throughout each week, you're already 80% of the way there. But then lifestyle in general, move your body more. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Like, go play outside with Junior. Go play fetch with the dog. Go for a bike ride on the trail. Like, get outside, do some fun stuff. Don't be sitting inside on your phone, doom scrolling, watching Netflix. I think there's some awesome value on Netflix, but I think the overall like benefit versus downsides of it is horrible. Like, all the streaming services are just like pulling us away from being outside, being healthy, being in the sun, and they're putting us inside in front of this black box that we just scroll on half the time. I remember in college, I would just scroll looking for an episode to like watch while I'm eating lunch, and I would never find one, and I'd finish lunch, and then it was like, oh, that was the biggest waste of time. And then like sleep is the other part of the lifestyle factor. I'd say if you could get nutrition movement, and sleep figured out, you're going to be in really good shape. I mean, like physically and like overall, you'll be 80% there if you focus on that 20%.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. The nutrition, the sleep one is huge for me. I've always been very selfish and very safeguarding of my sleep because I learned at a very young age, like it affects my mood. It affects what I want to eat. It affects my kindness, how I treat people. Like that is very important to me. And maybe I need a little bit more than somebody else, but that's another thing. Like sleep is very variable from person to person, but getting enough sleep is huge for me. It affects everything that I do. On your Instagram, it says in your bio, it says King of Consistency. How did you earn that title? What does that mean to you? And how would you tell somebody what would you what would be some tips that you would give somebody to be more consistent?
Yeah, that is a self-proclaimed title, King of
That's fine.
Consistency. I think that there are maybe some guys out there like Nick Bear or Ned Brockman might have me beat a little bit on that, but they didn't have it in their bio, so I figured it was up for taking.
It's up for the grabs.
Yeah, it was up for grabs. Yeah, dude, because that's what I think it all comes down to is consistency. That's what I call like the coaching that I do with my clients. It's consistency coaching. And yeah, man, like anyone can do anything once, but can you do it again and again and again? Another common theme that I'll throw in my captions is to be consistently good, not occasionally great. I learned that from Nick Bear when I was in Hawaii, kind of starting my whole running journey. And I realized it doesn't matter if I'm like wake up once a week feeling like a champ and I go run and have a great day. That's not as good as waking up 5 days of the week and saying, okay, I'm going to go get an okay workout in. Those 5 okay workouts are doing laps around that one good day. And what you do majority of the time is what you'll be left with. It's a principle that works with everything, with your diet, with your workouts, with your relationship, with your marriage, with your brother. You know, like me and my brother are so good about calling each other, and we've gotten really close from that. And the only reason is because we're consistently intentional about calling each other at least once a week. And if we weren't consistent with that, there's a good chance that we would, maybe grow apart a little bit, not in spirit, but like, physically, like, well, I don't even know what's going on with you anymore, bro. Like we don't talk, but like we're very close and connected. And that's a result of consistency. I'd say that's the best thing that I've learned from this whole journey is consistency is king. And it's kind of cliche. You hear people say that, but it's so true. Without it, you're kind of in trouble. And you can get lucky once, but there's a problem with that because if you earn success without putting in the work, you're going to lose it because you didn't learn the lesson about what it takes to actually get it. It's why, it's why lottery winners, 85% of people who win the lottery lose it because they didn't become a person who knows how to handle that much money. And Absolutely. If you're not seeing progress, the reason is you haven't learned the lesson or you haven't become the person who's ready to progress. So just keep going. Just keep being consistent. And it always works, man. Always. I don't know if you knew this. So I started posting on TikTok. That's where I first started everything. I posted there because I had like 2 mutual friends and the rest of it was just strangers. So I was like, no embarrassment really.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until last summer I started posting on Instagram. So I posted pretty much off and on, like I was still a little embarrassed. And then finally the end of August, I was like, screw it. I'm posting every day. I don't care. I'm going to do it normal. Follower count was at like 2,000, dipped down, and then kind of trickled up. I was at 3,000 middle of December, end of December, and now I'm about to hit 50,000. And it wasn't the one post that popped off. It was every single seemingly meaningless post prior to that all stacked up.
Have you read Atomic Habits by James Clear?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now on my shelf. I just
Yeah.
told one of my old roommates, he was asking me about a book to get, and I'm like, dude, if you're looking to start with
Yeah.
Atomic Habits. It's a great first
That's
book.
the one.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. And I love one of the key factors he talks about is a lot of times when people don't stick or aren't consistent to stay on topic is because they make these proclamations like, I'm going to run every day or something like that. You're not going to run every day. Like, you're not. And so when you run for your 3 days and then on that fourth day, when you don't run, you're like, oh, I'm a failure. And then you don't run your fifth day and then you don't run your sixth day. And so he talks about like when you are developing these habits or trying to be more consistent, make it too easy to fail initially. So like instead of running every day, it's like, I'm going to put my running shoes on every day, whatever that looks like. Like that's a very easy. It's something that could be accomplished. You can put your running shoes on. And as you do these things, you then change your mindset or you change your identity as a person because if you don't stick with habits, odds are your entire life you have that self-talk where it's like, oh, I'm not somebody who follows through, or I say I'm going to do it, but it's just going to be the same this time where I don't follow through, something's bad going to happen. But if you make the habit so small and so doable that it's almost impossible not to do, eventually your identity changes and you become somebody who's able to stick with the things that you say you're going to do. And you can make these larger goals and make these larger habits. So that's one of my all-time favorite books. And I think what you're preaching is great from that book because I completely agree with what you're saying. Consistency is key. And if you're not somebody who has been consistent or don't think you're capable of being consistent, just set smaller goals. Make it easy. Make it super easy. And then eventually your identity will shift and you'll be somebody who can achieve these larger goals.
Very well said, and 100% agree. That's probably where the core of my whole obsession with consistency started, is that book. And yeah, the start small and make it easy, make it simple. Like that's so important. I love
Yeah.
it, man. Yeah.
Awesome, dude. And just, I think it goes, as he says in the book, it goes both ways. So if you're trying to break a habit, try to make it a little bit harder. So if you're, get on your phone first thing in the morning and you don't want to do that, turn your phone off and put it in a different room. Like when you get up, you have to go through the extra steps of going over to your phone, turning it on, and it becomes an easier habit to break because you've added additional steps. So those are my biggest takeaways from that book. And I agree. Consistency is king on both parts. Consistency is key to breaking bad habits, but also starting new ones.
100%.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate your time today. There is a tradition on this podcast where I ask a guest who they would be most interested in listening to or talking to. That way, it's somebody that I can try and go after and get them on. And if I ever do get them on, all the credit goes to you for giving me the idea. Who would be somebody that you'd most want to talk to?
I'm a modern wisdom guy. I don't know if he's
Yeah.
been mentioned before, but Chris Williamson would be an awesome conversation. I think that guy's got so much knowledge. Sounds like he's just growing like wildfire right now, so it might be hard to get him in here. But dude, Chris Williamson, modern wisdom. I hope you get him on because you gotta give me credit for that.
For sure. I absolutely. He's a stud. He crazy. I listened to his podcast. I was listening to his story the other day. I did not realize he was as old as he is. He's like 38, started the game late. Obviously, I thought he was like 27. I was like, this my guy looks relatively younger than 38, but he's was late to the game. He just started consistently doing it. And I didn't know he came from Love Island. I was like, what is this guy doing? So that guy is awesome. I would definitely love to talk with him.
Yeah.
Like you said, he's growing crazy. So I'll put it in the books
And
maybe as this grows.
he's a tribute to the consistency. I think they're about to hit episode 1,000 at some point this year. And he said for the first 50 episodes, they were getting 0 views or listens, but they just kept going. He's consistent, and that's why people know his name now, you know?
Absolutely. All right, people. One takeaway: consistency. Just start small. Go with it. Reece, it was a pleasure, man. Hopefully next, if you're ever in Denver, pull through,
Yes,
and
sir.
we can try get around. I'll try to keep up with you.
Yeah.
Hopefully by then I can be a little bit faster.
No, I appreciate it, Chase. If you're ever in Charleston, let me know, brother. But I
Will
appreciate
do.
your time, man.
Of course. Last thing, just drop where people can find you. Instagram, TikTok, what you're doing.
Yeah, the handle on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube is Soft Schnell Taco. SOFTSCHNELLTACO. Kind of a play on soft shell taco. But yeah,
Soft
that's where
Schnell
you can find
tacos.
me. I'm posting every day. Uh, just doing whatever. It kind of changes up, but what I'm doing today was going to look a lot different than what I'm doing in a couple months. But I'll be letting you guys know what it is.
Awesome, man. All right, dude.